So for those of you who don't know, I wrote a short film and it deals with social justice and social injustice and what our roles are as the audience members, as the partakers in society. So this particular production we've been in pre-planning for, and we've obviously been put on pause, just like so many other artists have been here lately. So instead of falling back and getting into a woe is me mindset, we decided to have conversations to stimulate ourselves, hopefully inspire other artists, and just talk about what our roles are as community leaders going forward and creatives just on the whole. So stay tuned. So Fann is a dope human being. She's a director, a producer, a writer, author, soon to be. Stay tuned for that. So you've been talking about, you've been writing a book about what exactly?
So the book is really, the book is for free creatives, which is what I call creatives who are believers. And so essentially it's just a book about my journey of faith and creativity, because before I was saved, I was creative, right? So when I gave my life to Jesus and really started like living full out for him, I had to navigate like, okay, as a creative, like, what can I create? What does this look like for me now? And how do I use my gift purposefully the way God intended for me to use it? So it's just basically like a story of like those two worlds colliding, my creative life and my faith life, and what that looks like.
Interesting. So I was going to say, you and I were having a conversation about what balancing the narrative looks like a little bit more. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what is balancing the narrative, and what does that mean in the context of what we do as artists, just artists on the whole?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, because even in our initial conversation about it, we kind of looked at it from different angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So balancing the narrative as far as content and what type of content we see, balancing the narrative in content that may be similar in theme but different in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I just think all of it is necessary. And also one of the things that we talked about was balancing the narrative in reference to artists knowing that their story is valuable and has a place, because sometimes as like storytellers we feel like, oh well, this is the story that's out there that's being told, so my little story don't matter. But balancing the narrative too.
Exactly, though, because sometimes some people's stories don't matter. No, I'm just kidding. But no, really though, like really, what is like I guess I'm just trying to understand what that really entails, because some of the stories that people don't necessarily put a lot of thought into, and sometimes I feel like before I started writing, I was looking around at like, well, I don't see anybody writing stories like mine. So I started writing a script, and then Insecure came out, and I was like, wait a minute, that was my script. What are we, you know what I mean? So I don't know, personally, I guess I was feeling a little insecure about putting my own stuff out there because somebody else did it. So talk to me a little bit about like what that looks like as far as if you're going to be the person.
Yeah, I think it's not about necessarily like qualifying what stories need to be told or don't need to be told, because clearly stories are being told that is just like, okay, but for us to be brave enough to put our things out, and then too, as believers, like walking in faith and boldness, like putting out, like dropping the art when God like is like, drop it, because a lot of times we're holding on to stuff and stories that were supposed to be told 5 years ago. So when somebody puts it out, because I know I've had ideas and I'm like, dang it, like if only I would have been brave enough to put it out when the Lord gave it to me, so that's what I mean too. I guess like even like thinking about balancing the narrative, right? So there can be a lot, like right now we're dealing with this COVID-19 thing, right? So the narrative is heavily like on everything that's going on with the virus, right? Everything like that is kind of like perpetuating fear and panic and, getting people anxious. So like now would be the perfect time to, if you have a story about hope, or you have a video clip or some art, something that you can drop that kind of counteracts that narrative or that story. Like that's balancing the narrative too.
So the narrative is just what is being kind of sold out to the masses, I guess. So
What story is being told? Yeah.
mm-hmm. So what do you feel about like seeing some of the same situations kind of repeat themselves over again? So what if everybody just starts talking about hope, 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 hope? And I feel like there's a pessimist out here that's gonna be like, well, I can't talk about that because this stuff is real and this fear is going on. And like, what would you say to that person?
I would say that every story has an audience, and every audience isn't for your story.
Come on now.
So don't be intimidated by the people who haven't even rejected your work yet because you haven't put it out yet.
Okay, that's real. That's real. That's definitely how I've been feeling about this particular project. Well, I've been kind of like going backwards and forwards a little bit. Like, well, no, this is still a valid story. Now more than ever feels like a time to challenge
Mm-hmm.
structural inequity. Do you feel like balancing the narrative is going to make us more empathetic to other stories being told?
Oh, I think it's a part of making us more empathetic because as time has gone on, right, and technology has increased, our ability to empathize really has been affected because media has desensitized us to a lot of things, like being able to go on Facebook and see a video of someone being murdered. You know what I mean? Or, just seeing all of the bad news and things like that that is in media. I feel like there's been a what's the word? We've been desensitized to a lot of things, which causes us to not be empathetic or as compassionate. And I feel like the art that really moves people back, like even in what's going on right now, the fact that everybody is being impacted and we feel it is making us more empathetic. And so here's the thing about art, right? It's not about some formula. As actors, our job is to, like, my job is to make you feel, not to get on stage and pretend. So you know what I'm saying? But to have an experience on stage or on film that the audience can feel and it can resonate with them, right? So I feel like I forgot what the question was, but I feel like creating art and creating it genuinely will give us the ability to be more empathetic.
Right. Do you feel like empathy is necessary? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why is this sense of empathy necessary in the world right now today? Is it because you got spring breakers out in Florida, don't have no regard for nobody else, even for the fact that if they're healthy, they're not out here they're doing whatever. And I feel like we're having to get back to this sense of community now more than ever.
Yeah, and I think as we increase the images of empathy, people will become more empathetic. Just like I'm sorry, I live in Philly, y'all. I live in a neighborhood, so if you hear that car driving by with the ghetto blaster,
Right. I'm in
um,
New York. Somebody might be yelling at us and it's explicative.
but I feel like one of my favorite eras of television is like the 70s and 80s, right? Because there was a lot of morality in storytelling and television and films. It was just a lot of great examples set around family, around how we treat our neighbor, around how we move and function in the world around us, right? And so as we've moved into like reality television, you really see a lot of those values and morals on the decline. And even in like television shows that we see on TV now would not have been aired in the 80s. You know what I mean? Or even in the 90s, if you think about it. So the only difference is there has been an increase in those types of images and a decrease in the other ones that really kind of set the example for us. So I think the way to combat it not is to focus on like the negative side of it or the opposing side, because the opposing side ain't thinking about us, right? They're creating. So what our job is to do is to create more of those images to counterbalance, or not even like combat or fight or be like, give me a space or give me room. But no, like, here's the alternative, and we're just going to keep creating this stuff that's going to create the images that we want to see.
Is it our jobs to create morality? Because I feel like sometimes people who are believers and things like that, some of our TV shows are boring or kind of whack or kind of corny. Do you feel like it's our job? Because I feel like even in the 80s, there was a lot of rebellion going on. The 70s is like the wake of it too, like, you know, the afro, fist in the air. And I understand those things came out of something real. Um, but those things still existed. They just weren't at the forefront of TV. Like some of us were kind of held back. Like you didn't see black people on TV that much either then too. So like we're not like bad as a whole. So I'm just saying, like, do you think it's our job to be preaching morality as far as creatives go, or what?
I think our job as creatives, especially, and I'm going to talk about the scope of like a creative believer, I think our responsibility is to create however God told you to create.
Mm-hmm.
That story isn't gonna, and that's the bad rap like creative believers get, is that the work is corny or it's whack or it's not relevant, right? But I believe if we don't seek out a formula or like, oh, this works, let's tell this story, like, nah, pray and God will give you something dope, because God ain't corny.
Come on
He
now.
ain't corny.
That's the whole word.
So do I think it's our responsibility to create moral work? I think it's our responsibility to create the way God intends for us to create.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That's nice. When I think about like if like those people who've ever just spent some time reading the Old Testament, the drama, honey, was real.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the shade, the incest, the
Murder, all
murder,
kinds of stuff.
kinds of stuff. That was doing the most, honey. But thank
Yeah.
you so much, love, for taking time to converse with us. Thank you for consulting on this two-part project. And any last words? Any last advice for the creative believer or for the creative just on the whole?
I have last words and advice. So my last words, I'm so excited for Duvar. I'm so excited and proud of you. Um, I've just, because Brittany and I have known each other for a few years now, and just to see your creativity, I don't want to be like blossom like I've been, but
Right, the
seriously, like
world.
I've been seeing you persevere in your creativity as a writer, and moving into this like filmmaker space. It is really like exciting to see. So I'm so very proud of you. I'm excited about Duvar, and to all the creative believers, man, just create, because even with this project, I know it was prompted.
Mm-hmm.
Create the stuff God gives you. So that would be my advice, is just tell those stories that you're given to tell the stories you're given to tell.
Absolutely, man. All right, y'all. Y'all heard it from the world famous Fanetta Sanders. Fanetta, go on and give me some of them social media plugs. Go on, how people can find you, how to get
Yeah,
you.
listen, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Fann Sanders, FANN SANDERS, and that's where I be at.
All right, that's what she's gonna be, y'all. Peace out. Love and light.